Your bank knows exactly how much money you have, and based on that number, just that number, it's already decided what kind of person you get to be. The fees you pay, the rates you get, whether your call gets answered or sent to a 40-minute hold, whether your deposit clears today or in 5 business days, whether the suit guy walks out of the back office to greet you, or whether you stand in line behind a velvet rope nobody told you was there. You think you have a checking account, you actually have a class assignment. My name is Nick, and once you see the system, you can't unsee it. So today we're going to follow one guy named Mike. Mike has $800 in checking. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why Mike pays for the lifestyle of someone he's never met, and why his bank treats that arrangement as completely normal. Hit subscribe because this one's going to sting. Here's the thing, nobody tells you when you open a bank account. The richer you are, the less it costs you to borrow. The poorer you are, the more it costs you to exist. Same bank, same logo, same FDIC insurance, completely different math. Mike pays around 36% APR on his credit card. A guy across town with $5 million in stocks borrows from the same bank at 6%. That gap isn't a glitch, it's the entire business model. Everything else in this video, the fees, the tiers, the suit guy, the private lounges, the Centurion card, it's all just elaboration on that one inverted relationship. Hold on to it. We're about to watch it play out at every level of wealth, starting with Mike. Mike has $800 in checking, which, by the way, is roughly where the bottom quartile of US households lives. Mike walks into his bank, and on paper, his account is free, until he misses a direct deposit window and gets hit with a $15 monthly maintenance fee. Then his car insurance auto drafts on a Tuesday when his paycheck doesn't clear until Wednesday, and that's a $35 overdraft. Then the same thing happens with his phone bill. That's $70 more. Mike just paid the bank $120 in 8 days for the privilege of being short on rent. Here's the part that should make you genuinely angry. The CFPB has tracked this for years. About 9% of bank accounts pay roughly 79% of all overdraft and NSF fees in the country. 9%. And those accounts, they tend to carry average balances under $350. So the people who can least afford a $35 overdraft fee are statistically the ones absorbing the entire weight of the system. The average person who pays overdraft fees pays about $260 a year for the crime of being broke. $260 a year. Let me give you that number in something you can actually feel. Over 10 years, that's $2,600. Mike could have had a decent used car. Mike could have had 2 months of rent in an emergency fund. Mike could have had the down payment on the house Mike is not going to buy. The bank didn't just take his money, it took his runway. And the banks know this. They built it. The CFPB proposed a rule in 2024 to cap overdraft fees at $5, and Congress repealed that rule in the spring of 2025. The very next quarter, USAA's overdraft fee revenue jumped 20%. Citizens Banks jumped 17%. JP Morgan and Bank of America both went up too. The banks lobbied for the right to charge Mike $35 when he's already short, and they won by a vote. Mike is also more likely to be denied a normal credit card. So he ends up at places like Indigo MasterCard, paying a $175 annual fee for a $700 credit limit at 35.9% APR. That's not a credit card, that's a subscription to credit. Mike is paying for the right to be allowed to borrow money. And if Mike wants to dispute any of these fees, he gets to call customer service. The wait time on the standard line at most major banks runs 15 to 45 minutes. Mike will listen to soft jazz and a recording that tells him his call is important to the bank 6 times while he's holding. Eventually, a person will come on, ask Mike to verify his identity 3 different ways and tell him that the fee was correctly assessed per the account agreement. The person will sound apologetic. They will also be reading from a script that does not include a button for refunding Mike's money. Meanwhile, the suit guy is still in the back office. He has not come out for Mike. He will not come out for Mike. Mike does not know the suit guy exists. Now, let's say Mike gets a better job and over a few years builds up to $20,000 across his accounts. At Bank of America, 20 grand puts him in the gold tier of preferred rewards. He gets a 25% boost on credit card rewards, some account fees waived. At Chase, 15 grand across the relationship waives the monthly fees. Here's what just happened in tier terms. Mike was paying the bank. Now, Mike is allowed to break even. That's the promotion. Congratulations to Mike. He's no longer being actively bled. Push it to 50 grand and Mike hits platinum tier. 50% rewards bonuses, an ATM fee waived once a cycle, a quarter point off auto loans, $400 off mortgage origination. The bank is starting to be slightly nice, not because they like Mike, but because Mike is now a useful customer. They make more money from someone with 50,000 parked there than from someone with 500, and they're willing to give Mike a fraction of that difference in perks to keep him 100 grand, and Mike becomes platinum honors. Unlimited domestic ATM fee waivers, 0.5% off auto loans, $600 off mortgage origination. At Citi, $200,000 puts Mike into Citigold territory with a wealth advisor assigned to him, free wires, no foreign exchange fees, and access to physical Citigold lounges in New York, London, and Hong Kong. Banking lounges, like airport lounges, but for having money. Mike has not been inside one of these. The suit guy is in there. The suit guy has a name now, by the way. His name is something like Brad, and Brad has business cards. This is where the bank starts performing relationship for Mike. The wealth advisor, by the way, is not really an advisor. He's a salesperson with a softer title. His job is to keep Mike's money inside the bank's ecosystem, which means moving Mike into the bank's investment products, the bank's mortgage, the bank's insurance, all of which usually generate higher fees than what Mike would pay if he shopped around. But it feels personal. And personal feels like value, even when the math says Mike is paying for the privilege of being known by name. Here's a sentence the bank will never say out loud, but is structurally true. Mike is now worth keeping. Mike is no longer the customer the bank tolerates because it has to. Mike is the customer the bank loses sleep over losing. That shift, that one psychological flip in how the institution thinks about him, is what every perk in this tier is really paying for. The bank wants Mike to feel observed. Mike is starting to be observed. The hold on his check got shorter. The phone hold got shorter too. He didn't notice these changes because they're not announced. They're just applied. At $150,000 across deposits and investments, Mike becomes a Chase private client. This is the line where the rules don't just bend, they flip. Mike now has a dedicated banker, an actual human being whose phone number he has. Brad calls Mike. Brad does not put Mike on hold. If Mike has a problem at 11 at night, Brad answers his cell. Mike also has a dedicated JP Morgan private client advisor for his investments. Mike's overdraft fees, gone. Wire fees, gone. ATM fees worldwide, gone. Foreign exchange fees, gone. Mike's relationship with Brad has officially begun. Brad now knows Mike's kids' names. Brad sends a card on Mike's birthday. Brad has allegedly flown to a client's house once to deliver a replacement debit card before a vacation. This is not a joke. This actually happens at this tier. And here's where the system stops being about convenience and starts being about money. If Mike gets to $1 million across the relationship, Chase gives him a quarter point off his mortgage rate. A quarter point doesn't sound like much. On a $600,000 mortgage over 30 years, that's roughly $30,000 in interest Mike doesn't pay, just because the money was sitting at the bank. Bank of America does the same. At their Diamond Honors tier, which starts at $1 million in assets after they merged the old Diamond tiers in May 2025, Mike would get 0.3% off his mortgage rate, 0.75% off HELOC rates, 0.5% off auto loans. He starts getting handed experiences with Louis Vuitton and NetJets. Bank of America genuinely partners with NetJets to give wealthy clients private jet experiences. That is a real product that exists in 2026. Now stop and look at the math from the other direction. Remember Mike at the bottom paying $35 for an overdraft? That money is, in a very real sense, funding the perks Mike at $1 million gets. The bank takes overdraft revenue from the bottom and redistributes a chunk of it as Louis Vuitton experiences for the top. That's not a metaphor. That's how the income statement of a major bank actually works. The fees on people who can't afford them subsidize the rewards for the people who don't need them. The first version of Mike paid for the seventh version of Mike's private jet weekend. And the cruelest part of this is that nobody in the chain feels evil. Brad isn't evil. Brad is genuinely a nice guy who remembers your kids' birthdays. The CEO isn't evil. He's optimizing for shareholders. The customer service rep who couldn't refund Mike's overdraft fee, also not evil. Also reading from a script written by someone who's also not evil. The whole machine produces a clearly regressive outcome through a series of decisions made by people who would each describe themselves as just doing their jobs. There is no villain. There's only a sorting algorithm wearing a polite face, which is weirdly harder to be angry at than an actual villain. You can't write a strongly worded letter to a pricing tier, push past 3 million, and Mike enters Bank of America's private bank, which used to be called US Trust. He stops being a customer and becomes what the bank calls a relationship. The plural noun is important. Mike now has a team, a private banker for daily stuff, a wealth strategist for portfolios, trust officers for estate planning, a specialty lending banker who structures jumbo mortgages with almost no documentation, art loans against the Modigliani he just bought, aircraft financing, and yes, Bank of America Private Bank has a specialty asset management group that owns farmland and timberland on behalf of clients, although they'll tell you flat out that to actually have them own farmland on your behalf, the minimum is $10 million and you need a net worth of $100 million. There are bank products with a $100 million net worth requirement just to buy in. That's not a typo, that's the pricing tier. At JP Morgan, Mike with money would be a JP Morgan private client, which is a different brand from JP Morgan Wealth Management, which is also different from JP Morgan Private Bank. They have at least 3 brands all called private something, and they mean different things. JPM's actual private bank recently raised its minimum to $10 million after an internal presentation showed that 90% of their clients already cleared that bar. They are openly culling their own client list. Mike at $800 is not aware this is happening. But here's the part that explains everything else. At this tier, Mike stops borrowing money the way normal people borrow money. He pledges his stock portfolio and gets what's called a securities-backed line of credit. Schwab will lend him against his portfolio at SOFR plus roughly 1.9 to 4.4%. In early 2026 numbers, that's an all-in rate of about 5.5 to 7%. Fidelity does it. Morgan Stanley does it. So go back to the very beginning of this video and look at the numbers side by side. Original Mike pays 35.9% APR on an Indigo MasterCard. Wealthy Mike borrows from the same banking system at 6.5. That's a 29-point gap, same logos, same regulators, inverted math. And then there's the punchline. Wealthy Mike doesn't pay this loan back from income because pulling income from his business would trigger 37% in federal tax. He just keeps borrowing against his stock. The stock keeps going up. When he dies, his heirs inherit it at a stepped-up basis, which erases the capital gains tax entirely. The loan gets paid off from the estate. This strategy has a name. It's called buy, borrow, die. ProPublica did the math in their secret IRS files investigation. The 25 wealthiest Americans saw their net worth grow by $401 billion between 2014 and 2018. They paid $13.6 billion in federal income tax, a true tax rate of 3.4%. Jeff Bezos' true tax rate was 0.98%. For every $100 his wealth grew, he paid about $1.09 in tax. The typical American paid $160 in tax for the same $100 of wealth growth. The bank made this entire arrangement possible by being willing to lend against stock instead of asking him to sell it. Mike's overdraft fees paid for the marble lobby where the meeting happened. So what is the bank? Actually, it's not your friend, it's not your enemy. It's a sorting algorithm with a marble lobby. It looks at your balance and prices you accordingly, and then it dresses that pricing up in language about service and relationship and rewards. The fees aren't a bug, they're a tier. The rates aren't market set, their relationship set. The hold on your check isn't a security policy, it's a discount applied to your time because your time is, in the bank's math, less expensive than the time of someone with more money. The bank is not mistreating you, it's correctly pricing you, which is somehow worse. And once you see this, a lot of small things stop being mysterious. Why your call gets sent to hold, but your wealthy uncle's banker calls him back. Why your credit application requires a hard pull, while your friend with money gets pre-approved on a soft one. Why the same institution charges 36% on one floor of the building and 6% on the next floor up. None of it is personal. All of it is calculated. The marble lobby looks the same to everyone, but the price of the marble depends on which door you walked in through. The most useful thing you can do with this information is small. Stop being grateful when the bank doesn't punish you. Stop reading no monthly fee with qualifying balance as generosity. It's not generosity. It's the bank telling you in writing the exact price of not being charged. Stop assuming that Brad doesn't exist. Brad exists. He's just not for you yet. And the question of whether he ever will be is mostly a question of whether you can move from one side of the inverted math to the other before you run out of time. Mike is going to walk into his bank tomorrow. He's going to deposit a check that won't clear until Monday. He's going to pay another fee he didn't read about, and he's going to listen to 23 minutes of soft jazz trying to dispute it. Somewhere on the other side of the building, Brad is escorting somebody into a private office. Brad and Mike have never met. Brad does not know Mike's name. Mike is paying Brad's salary. Mike is paying for the office. Mike is paying for the marble. Mike does not know this because nobody at the bank is going to tell him. That part's on us. If this video changed how you think about your next bank statement, smash that like button and subscribe. Drop a comment with the most insulting fee your bank has ever charged you, because I read all of them, and some of them are genuinely worse than what I covered in this video. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.